When I started to work with the horses, I realized that I had a lot that I had to let go of. I had to become a different version of myself. I was so type A. I was so driven. I was the yes girl. And I just wasn't happy. I was like very much in my masculine energy, focusing on the ego goals of success. I needed to totally reprogram what work was, right? Work was not just like go in and clock as many hours as you possibly could and not even remember I had a body. And then I also had to reprogram what were horses. There's a friendship recession going on, and I have to do something about this. I love my friends. I've always had good friends, and I'm like, we can't have that. So I think horses are good friends to us too. Anxiety is so future focused that the horses are living in the present moment and nature is existing in full expression in the present moment. So I think that's what the horses can really help people with. Because this is what I want for people. I want people to feel hopeful. And so,
but why is it taking the horse world so long to question how we are treating our animals, how we are behaving under saddle, or what we're letting our trainers do in the arena? Kate Nelligan left her career in television and entertainment behind to live on her ranch, which is also home to her horses and goats. She works alongside her animals to deliver equine-partnered life coaching and workshops too. Kate has seen life-changing transformations in people who want to feel seen, be heard, accepted and loved by horses. So what can an equine friend teach us? Why do some of us have special connections with mares rather than geldings? And how can horses show us how to be better humans? Let's cross the pond and join Kate, shall we? Kate, welcome to Curious Equestrian.
thanks for having me.
When did horses first come into your life?
I feel like forever, my entire life. I rode when I was a kid. I was the huge horse animal lover, wanted to be a veterinarian, always asked for a cat. And my mom had ridden as a child and she thought I'd like it. So she took me and then I absolutely fell in love with it. And I felt like I immediately saw horses and they saw me. And that was so powerful. And they're so big. And for a little kid, to just look into their eyes and feel seen, it was a game changer. And so, like all of the little girls that are horse obsessed, I read all the books, watched all the movies, and just always dreamed about having my own horse someday. And it took quite a while for that to happen, but at least I rode since I was a kid. And I look back now at 2 or 3-year-old kids that start, and I wish I started that young, but I probably started when I was about 10.
And what inspired you to want to work with horses? Because it's very different, isn't it, to just having our horses in our lives?
Yeah, it is. It's something that I feel was always going to happen, but I didn't see it. And one day I was in the media world and the television and entertainment world. And one day a friend just out of nowhere, out of the blue, was like, "Are you done with this?" And I'm like, "I might be." And then she's like, "I just see you working with horses and coaching, doing life coaching with horses." And I'm like, "What is that?" I didn't know what that even was. And I'm like, "Am I going to be shouting life advice while we're trail riding?" Like I literally, that was what I thought it was. And then she's, "No, it's something else." And then out of nowhere, I was at the ranch one day and the woman I was leasing my horse from, she was like, "You're never going to believe what I just saw the woman who was running the ranch do." She was working with addiction treatment centers, and those who are in rehab were coming for equine-assisted therapy. And she's, "You'll never believe it. Like my horses did all these incredible things I've never seen them do before." And it was as though time stood still. And I'm like, Wait, what are the horses doing?" And so I was like, "I need to see this. I need to see this." So I volunteered and I was her apprentice, or she was my mentor for over a year. And I just sat in these sessions and I'm like, this is so incredible with the horses, how they're doing things on the ground, not mounted, interacting with people. And I watched people change so quickly in 2 hours that I'm like, I have to do this. And it was the necessary next step because my entertainment career was not going the way I'd wanted. My startup was not taking off and it was hard. It was just so hard. And then everything with the horses felt like there was ease and flow and grace around it. And I'm like, this is where I'm meant to be. And it was the right blend of my passion and love from being a child. And I always say a lot of what we love to do as a kid is really actually our calling. It's our purpose and it's our great joy. We know it when we're little. But there was also me wanting to share my master's in spiritual psychology more with the world. And I was doing empowerment workshops for women, but without the horses. And I'm like, of course, the horses have to be a part of this. That's a natural step. So,
And what was it like leaving your secure corporate career that I imagine in entertainment, as you say, and media is very loud and it's very fast paced and high pressure. What was then what was life like after leaving it behind? Because there must have been a part of you that had to really let go of that part of you as well.
yes. Yeah. Said, I honestly feel like the horses came into my life at the exact right time. I had about 10 years off from them. And when I was in the movie studio world, I two doors down, there was this woman and she had this gray Arabian up on her wall. And one day I went in and I'm like, "Is that your horse? Can we talk about horses?" And she's, "Yes." And she ended up being my introduction to really everything. She had the horse that I started
Wow.
leasing. And so when I started to work with the horses, I realized that I had a lot that I had to let go of. I had to become a different version of myself. I was so type A. I was so driven. I was the yes girl. I got a lot done for a lot of people. I just wasn't happy. I was like very much in my masculine energy, just driving and focusing on the ego goals of success. And everyone around me was like, how do you get to the next level? And how do you take market share? And how do you, it was this, it was just so goal heavy. And what really changed me was having this gray Arabian in my life that her name means happily in Italian. And she was like, you need to slow down. And she was an ex performance horse. She was a huge, like, Grand Prix dressage horse that was thrown away. And because she didn't want to show anymore, she would just have nervous breakdowns and didn't want to show. And so her and I were both healing that old performance driven part of ourselves that we just got caught up in other people's worlds, but wasn't really authentic to who we are. And so she taught me basically to remember who I am. She taught me to bring out like the feminine energy of slowing down and receiving and relationship rather than just goals. And so I started to put myself through equine assisted learning, therapy, coaching so that I could change and I could see how what the horses would do to me. And then I knew and believed in it. That's also something that they could do for my friends and my clients and everyone else in my life.
It's so interesting that you mention a grey Arabian mare because I had a very important time in my life as a teenager. I came across a grey Arabian mare who taught me a lot of lessons about life and about riding. And I loaned her from her owner at the time who was struggling with her. But they didn't tell me they were struggling with her. They just said, "Oh, we haven't got enough time. She's going to waste. She needs someone to hack her out and school her and jump her." And I thought, fantastic. I'm desperate to get out of the riding school life and have a little slice of owning my own horse without the whole cost and responsibility at that time of my life at school. And I was given this very problematic mare to deal with, and we just bonded instantly. And where she would throw everyone off, that she would throw them flying through the air in the arena, obviously hadn't seen that. I just got on and we were, off we went. We were doing, cantering circles, we were popping jumps, we were hacking. And I didn't know everyone else, she was towing them off. She was plowing them over the fence. She was dragging them along in the stirrups. And she was just so misunderstood. And everyone was judging her and everyone was pushing her to try and, like you say, compete and do things she didn't want to do. And we just had great fun together. I just feel like we got each other, and off we went on these adventures in the countryside, and I was very relaxed and I was loving every moment of being with her. And had the ultimate heartbreak of the owner obviously moving her on and finding her another home and not giving me any kind of say in it, as often happens when you loan and lease horses. But I learned so much about how to be sensitive, how to listen, how to be subtle as someone who is normally quite a high energy, high freak, who's very expressive and who's very loud. She taught me to just bring everything down and to listen quietly and do things
Yeah.
together. And isn't there something so special about the Arabian
Yeah.
horse? Because that you have to be like that, don't you? You have to be gentle and quiet.
I've watched people that aren't with them, and it does not go well, as you said. And yeah, they're so smart. They know they like read us in an instant and they know, I think, where our hearts are at. I always say horses have a filter and they look at you and they know, okay, I know this person I can have fun with, or I know this person is someone that will respect me, or I see some of the rough edges, but I know I can smooth them out. And like they read us, and the Arabians, I think, even more. And it's your story is so beautiful. And it makes me wonder if she was, I don't know her backstory, but it makes me wonder if she was thrown away because she was difficult. She was turned out to pasture. All I knew is that she didn't want to be trailered and go to shows, but I wouldn't be surprised if she was also difficult and getting like evacuating
Yeah.
people. And so, yeah, but that we just wanted to trail ride. Like I needed to, two things were happening at the same time. One, I needed to totally reprogram what work was, right? Work was not just go in and clock as many hours as you possibly could and not even remember I had a body. And then I also had to reprogram what were horses, and like that I didn't have to show, because I grew up, I showed in college, and I didn't have to show per se, and I didn't have to, always ride in a lesson. So it was her and I going out on trails, like two best friends. I love how you said we did stuff together. There's that energy,
Mm.
especially with mares, where it's if you can do things with them instead of to them, you will have a great connection. And it's a lot like women. Women put up with a lot of things being done to us, but if you do things with us, there's a greater sense of connection, empowerment there. But yeah, the Arabians are special. The mares are incredible teachers for women, especially. And I do think the misunderstood or difficult horse just needs to be seen and celebrated. In some ways, like the misunderstood or difficult woman, like where's that actually coming from, and can we restart? That's a lot of, she needed a restart. I needed one, and she showed me who horses really are, not who I thought they were.
Mm. Isn't it so interesting as well in the horse world that people either love or hate
Yes.
mares? Now, where that come from? Why do people either only want
Yeah.
mares or never want
Yeah.
mares?
I know. I
It's
love
always
geldings
the way.
also. They're awesome and they're so different. But no, I know. Someone was telling me the other day that she was at a boarding facility where they would not allow mares or this, and I was just like, that blew my mind. But there's something confronting about them that I think people are not ready for. And that's why they really don't like them. But I also think that they also potentially just need gelding energy for a while. Like they need things maybe
Mm,
to be more simpler or more like playful or whatever it is. And not that mares can't be simple and playful, they can. It's, I think sometimes we're drawn to also what we most need. And I feel like I've always needed the mares to teach me. So,
yeah, and sometimes mares are drawn to you. It's really interesting because when I was young and in riding schools and riding friends' horses and being around any horse or pony that I could get close to when I couldn't have my own horse, it was always geldings in my life. When I came to loan horses and own horses, mares started finding me, having never been a mare person because I'd always been given geldings to ride when you don't have a choice through a riding school or through your friends. And it's really interesting, isn't it, that often these problematic, in inverted commas, mares that were seen to be bolshy and opinionated, they all came to find me, and I had to find a way of getting along with them and listening to them and not thinking this is a mare, this is different to the way of the gelding, but actually, how can we work together? How can we bond? How can we achieve what we want to achieve together without putting the mare bracket on it and thinking, oh no, can't do that because she's a mare, wouldn't want to do that because she's a mare. And like you say, we have a lot of yards in the UK that will say geldings only in this herd. And it's pushing through those stereotypes and those sort of perceptions of what it means to have a gelding, what it means to have a mare, isn't it? And actually coming to your own conclusions and your own
yeah.
experiences.
Yeah, and I've seen places in the States that they don't want the stallions around. And there's a piece of that I understand, but
Mm.
ultimately I feel like what the horses are bringing in right now is they're all individuals like we are, right? They all have individual personalities, souls, things they're here to learn, things they're here to share. So I think they want to be seen as individuals. Like I have two mares that are completely different, and they're working on their sisterhood. They're showing me how to work on mine. I feel like lately part of what I'm working through is like sisterhood wounding. And so I think there's so much interesting information there, but I think you're right about we can't just put labels on all of this and be in these camps of I'm a gelding person, I'm a mare person, or I have a chestnut mare, and that's another whole stereotype.
Oh, yeah,
So it's like,
it is.
but I just think they're all individuals, like they all like we are, where we have to celebrate our differences and also connect through similarities as well.
Before we continue, I just want to take a moment to say a huge thank you to all the supporters that make this show happen, our incredible Curious Equestrian community. Many of you have asked how we can keep in touch between episodes. Well, we've created something super special just for you, the Curious Equestrian newsletter. You'll gain access to our personal insights on every interview, articles written by guest speakers and authors, plus equine experts who are challenging what we think about our horses. If you're as passionate as we are about challenging the status quo and pushing boundaries in the horse world, then you will love our newsletter. Head on over to curiousequestrian.co.uk to join our newsletter community. Right, let's jump back into the discussion, shall we? And I don't know if you find this, Kate, but I wonder if it's if people are scared of the hormones. If you think most people don't own stallions unless they're at a stud. I was lucky enough to grow up close to a stud, so I grew up riding pony stallions and my friends' stallion horses, so I did get a different perception to everyone else. But going to other yards and seeing that fear of there's a stallion on the yard, we must behave differently, when actually it's just a stallion. It's just another personality and character, and they can be the most gentle creatures. I've seen them with 2-year-olds on their
Oh
backs
yeah.
and grooming them, and my friends' babies being perched on them, and it's just the most incredible atmosphere and the most incredible sight. But in a way, mares are hormonal creatures. There's no difference between a mare and a stallion. So actually, is it just that people cling to geldings thinking they're going to be less hormonal, they're safer, maybe?
I think that's a lot of what it is, and what I have seen more and more in the horse world is there's actually, like, a deep-seated fear of horses that I think a lot of people have, and even if you're a horse person, and I think that's where the control mechanisms come from. Let's do a bigger bit, let's bring in spurs, let's get really big tacks so we feel more powerful or grounded, and I think there's this fear that people aren't necessarily addressing, and part of when I started to see it is I turn over 40 and a lot of my friends are over 40 and we're more nervous about riding now, and I think there's different reasons for
Mm.
that, but I think that when I see people in the equine assisted coaching space, people come in and sometimes they want to work with their fear of horses because they've had something happen as a child, or they've always been nervous around horses, or they don't know horses at all. They haven't really had any exposure. So they're learning and they're a little like, whoa, with the energy. And I get it. But then I even see it with people who are around horses all the time. And they're still like, wait, you can't be in my space at all. Like, I have to push you back. I have to, and there's these like protective bubbles. And in my personal experience with this incredibly gentle thoroughbred chestnut mare that I didn't ride as my second horse, and really my first horse that was mine, that she taught me how much magic could happen when she was in my space, like what she was actually doing when she was breathing with me or putting her head to certain parts of my body, and I would feel energies releases. I would feel pain come right out of my body. And so there it's what I feel like her and a lot of the other horses are doing for me now is trust. Learn how to trust us. It doesn't mean they're not still dangerous, but cars are dangerous. You know what I mean? We drive them all the time. So it's learning how to know how to read them and read the energies and also stay enough in the moment so that we are aware of things that could all of a sudden happen, but ultimately they're wanting us to trust them more. And I think they don't understand the fear. Like, why are we so afraid of them? And I think that's where the control comes from, is from the fear. The same,
Mm.
it's with stout, and there's a lot of just belief systems that we have to question in the horse world. Like, why are we doing, I love the name curious. Let's say curious. Why are we doing it that way still? Could there be a different way?
Yeah. Isn't it interesting, so many other aspects of our lives, we question, don't we, our behaviours? Are we spending too much time on our phone? Are we watching too much TV? We question aspects of our lives and people, but why is it taking the horse world so long to question how we are treating our animals, how we are behaving under saddle, or what we're letting our trainers do in the arena, shouting, or in some ways, the language they use can be very triggering and very negative, can't it? If you actually listen to what's being
Oh yeah.
said, like you say, we have to hope that this curiosity will also shift throughout the equestrian world. And do you think we're seeing change at the moment? How do you feel, Kate? Is the equestrian world moving fast enough?
Yeah. Is it moving fast enough? I don't have an answer for that. Being that it's like, what is the benchmark? What is fast enough? Would I like to see it change more quickly? Yes. Would I like to see it have a bigger awakening? Yes. There is growth, there is change. And even just from when I rode as a kid to now, I guess that's 40 years, but or 35 years, but I do see a lot of changes, but there still is a lot of stuff that I'm like, I just put my blinders on. I'm like the horse that's, let me just be in my lane, because I can't get upset about all the
Mm,
other things that I do see, or even places where I expect people to really get it and they're still doing stuff like calling their animals names and just and that kind of thing, and I'm like, whoa. So I think that there is change, but I would like to see it happen faster, because I do feel like the horses are here for it, like they're waiting for it, and it's up to us. But I also feel like when I've talked to them, they talk about forgiveness a lot. Like, tell people that they're not perfect. They're not going to be perfect. It's okay. Because I often work with a lot of people that come to me and they have such shame around how they used to be with
mm,
horses, and myself included. Like the stuff I used to do, I was like, God, I would never do that now. And and we've all had that. I think all of us who've been with horses have started in like a what I'll call lower vibrational place, and we've evolved. Some of us a little bit, some of us a lot. But I think
mm.
ultimately when people hold too much shame or guilt, that also doesn't help, because then they either stop being around horses, they'll stop riding completely, which may actually be a detriment to their joy and connection and relationship with horses if the horse wants to be ridden and hang out that way, work that way. But they also, then they don't step fully into their gifts. And I've worked with people, especially lately, that they're like, I need to clear some of these stuck emotions, because I'm not even stepping into my work with horses because I feel bad about what I did with the trainer 20 years ago. And I'm like, it's time to
Mm.
let that go. Like, we do better when we know better, and we can't look back at our history and think it should be perfect, because it's not going to be. We often, unfortunately, in the earth school, we learn through being pushed by pain. We learn through how not to do things sometimes.
And it's progress that people are feeling that way, isn't it? That people are reflecting and going, "That was awful and I'll never do it again." That is progress, and they're making change and shifting the way that they are acting and reacting, which is great and something to be celebrated. Kate, I want to shift back to something you said at the beginning of the podcast when you were talking about equine-assisted learning and therapy. When you mentioned that horses were being used at the yard that you were working at for addicts, how did the horses help those suffering with addictions?
Yeah, it was so interesting, because that is not work that I still do, but I really was immersed in it at the time, because my first mentor there was a lot of treatment centers in Malibu, California, and they wanted this alternative form of therapy and healing. And so they would bus people in a couple times a week instead of them going to the beach or to yoga or whatnot. And they would come in and they would be very disconnected from their bodies. They would be in their head, they were detoxing. So they were also in those kind of physical symptoms, like potentially even cranky and all of that. And then they would take a breath because they were in nature and they started to get more grounded. And then they would notice the horses and how beautiful they were and how peaceful they were. And they would start to essentially come into some form of regulation, right? Emotional regulation. And their heart rate would change. And so you'd have all these like physical changes that were happening naturally, subtly, quickly. And then all of a sudden they started to feel safer. So they would talk more, they would open up, and they would have more emotions come forward. And then we would basically do simple exercises with them that a lot I learned from my mentor about how you do one thing is how you might do anything in life, right? So if you go up to a horse and you all you want to do is grab their face and touch their face and take, it's that's the energy you're coming with is I need something from outside of myself
Mm.
to feel good. I need to touch, I need to take
Oh,
this. Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Or one of the exercises is so simple, go say hello to a horse. And if you can't get a horse to say hello to you, a horse is not saying hello to you, what stories are you telling? And immediately you would see the story of the horse is a jerk, or I'm not enough, or people were
Mm.
processing rejection and people were processing disappointment. And like it would happen so quickly because of how the horses would like choose to be or reflect and what was going on. And it's this experiential learning. So they would leave after two
Mm.
hours and they were like different. They were happy, they were grounded, they looked healthy compared to when they came in, and they were like hopeful. And I was like, this is what I want for people. I want people to feel hopeful. And I knew that I needed to then do that with like high performing individuals that were like me who needed to learn how to slow down, enjoy life more, and be more of a type B than a type A and still feel and to feel like they were enough to feel that less sense of
Mm.
like more self-love through understand themselves better and being compassionate. And so it was just so neat to watch because they would change so drastically in 2 hours that I was like, what is actually going on? And that's when I decided this is what I want to study because I need to know what this magic is.
By the way, when I laughed earlier, it was only because when you described that group of people that were very touchy-feely and cuddly, I was thinking of myself there and imagining what my horses think of me, because I'm someone who loves to be cuddled and to cuddle, and how I probably come across as quite needy. Now it's all right for my mare because she's very much like me and is also very needy and likes to be close and likes to be cuddled and fussed and groomed and massaged. But just wondering what other horses might make of that energy coming towards them as someone who actually probably needs a lot of sort of physical interaction. So it made me laugh. It is quite it's quite sobering, isn't it, when you start to learn things about yourself that actually you'd quite like to change or that make you realise things about
Yeah.
yourself.
I love it. And we would always say, is this still working for you? Like you get to choose, is it still working for you? And
Mm.
being cuddly with a horse that also wants to be cuddly, that does work. That works for both of you. And then it becomes, is it just the joy of physical touch or is there other things to it? And my mare, she's not a big
Mm.
cuddle. But when I say to her, like, hey, can we have a cuddle fest? She's sure. And then I can like literally hold her whole head in my arms and she gives me her whole head.
Oh.
And we do have our cuddle fest, but she is so clear that one of her main teachings, and I love watching it, she does it with women particularly who are super, super powerful. And they'll go to touch her. And she just does this little ear pin and side eye. And I'm always like, the first time she did it, I was like, oh, she must not be feeling well, or she's really mad, and I need to go check it out. And then she did it to me, and she doesn't do that to me. So I was like, what are you doing? And I knew she was teaching. I knew she was stepping into trying to communicate something. And she did it. It was a team building that we were doing. And this woman, I said, guys, instead of trying to just all touch her right now, come across from the fence
Mm.
and just breathe with her and just be. And I was like, see if you can see yourself as powerful as you see her. And what do you see? And they're like, we see majesty, we see beauty. And I'm like, are you that? Right? You are that. You
Mm.
have that deep desire to be in connection. And hence doing a podcast, like talking to
Mm.
people and being curious. There's this deep sense of wanting to be loved and to share love. And that might really
Mm.
celebrate. And what these women would see is, oh, I don't have to go take or grab anything outside of myself. I am that powerful and beautiful and majestic, and I can own that. And I would watch like just the tears start, or people like you would see almost like the light bulb moments go off, and they're like, I needed that lesson. I needed to see myself that way. And then after they would sit back down in the group, then Phoenix would come over and kiss the side of the head or like cuddle with you. And it was that whole, I'll give this to you, but I don't, you gotta realize you don't have to take it. As women, so much of our mission is to
Mm,
learn how to receive and to fill ourselves up first, and then the universe returns
yeah.
that back.
I think I'm learning lessons, Kate, through across the pond.
Love it. And
It's
bring up
safe to
your
say.
spin for this.
I've I've just seen the whole psychology behind maybe why I'm so cuddly
I love
as a
that. I
person.
love that.
Oh my goodness. Oh gosh. That's certainly something for me to chew on, I tell you that. Kate, I've got to ask you, you set up your coaching, you bring in the horses to the coaching sessions. What is it about our horse human bond that is so healing for us humans?
Yeah, it's like the $1,000,000 question, and I think there's always, I think, 2 answers. There's the science side of it, which my brain goes to wanting to be a veterinarian and pre-med in college, but and all the psychology and all of that. And then there's this magical, unexplainable side that will we ever fully know because it's the way horses are in the world and what they represent. But the physical side, it's the size of their hearts and the electromagnetic frequency of what's going on in the heart space and the heart coherence and the regulation. It's the size of their guts and how much they are connected to what feels good and how to take care of themselves and not get out of balance and eat well and drink well. And then it's their 4 feet on the ground and being so grounded and connected to the earth that we can also be that grounded and connected to the earth for our own wellness. It's their being a prey animal and how they reset and they don't stay in fight, flight, or freeze. And we can learn from that. So there's their physical elements that are healing. It's how they're role modeling this like deep level of being an animal on earth that knows how to navigate needs and take care of themselves. And I think as women, we have to learn that too. And then there's this
Mm,
magical spiritual side to them, which I look at it as how they're role models, like what they're actually teaching us. The gray Arabian mirror is teaching us about relationship, teaching about us about connection and what it means to be in power with. Let's do things together rather than a bunch of people having an agenda with a horse, and the horses know
mm.
that. And my mare said that to me once when I was learning Liberty. She's dropped the agenda. Like we get to just be together through this place of joy. And so she wanted to teach me through the role modelship of the energies of the emotional intelligence qualities. That's why I created this card deck, the Awakening with Equines card deck, because they were like, put all of the things that we teach in one place. And I think that's really healing when people are like, okay, I'm in this journey right now to learn trust from horses. Right. And that's healing my past where maybe I didn't have a lot of trust, or I'm here to learn leadership right now from horses. And that's really healing for me. And I can bring that into being a parent or bring that into a corporate, a company environment. So I think it's that's sort of this emotional, magical side. And then there's also just the frequency that they're at, which I think honestly, it's just a high vibration. They spend a lot of time in meditation. They spend a lot of time in that connective herd, collective energy.
Mm.
They ride between worlds. And so what are they accessing that we can also access that's higher spiritual realms that and higher energy? I can be with them for a couple of minutes and have a migraine clear. What is that? What is that actual medicine?
100%. I'll often find if I've got a headache or if I've got a stomach ache, I go up to be with my horses, do my normal routine. You would think that physical exertion of sweeping and bucketing water would actually make a stomach ache worse, but it always makes it better. And it's like, how is that time with horses actually healing the physical issues that I'm feeling when it's strenuous work, isn't it? It's not restful. It's strenuous work, ploughing, trudging through the mud, climbing gates, leading horses. It can be quite physical, and it's always a cure.
Yeah.
always.
It's so wild. I literally the only thing I can think of, because I've been talking to a lot of energy healers lately, and the only thing I can really truly, and we don't have, I don't think, science on this, and if someone does, I'd love to see it, but it's like their frequency is so high. It's like you bring in the frequency of Reiki, and Reiki is a healing agent, or you bring
Mm,
in other types of healing modalities that people have downloaded or connected to, and I really think it's just the horses themselves are high frequency. They are the energy of who they are and what they can do to transmute lower vibration, and also then transfer in higher vibration. Like that rebalances us. And I've seen miraculous healings with people who they're not using their asthma inhaler anymore because they can breathe because horses worked on them, and or like cancer goes into remission. And these aren't claims that we can make because we're not in that space of it being like this regulated medicine. But the horses are at such a high frequency, and we have to pay attention to like how we actually are feeling so much better when we're around them. And people sleep better too.
so
And then nature on top of that adds all of that medicine too, right?
and even just feeling low as well, or feeling flat. You've had a bad day at work, or got troubles with your friendship group, or issues in a relationship. You head out with horses and it clears, doesn't it? It's like a mist or a fog clearing, and you feel re-energized afterwards, or I certainly do in that situation. And it's just such a feeling of being so grateful to be able to spend time around these amazing creatures. Now, Kate, I've got to ask you, normally if I'm asking a horse trainer, I can say, what issues are you seeing with horses and ponies at the moment? What are, in our current society, what are our equines really struggling with? What do you find at the moment are common themes as to why people are seeking out horses in their lives?
Yeah, I feel I see both things because I do a lot of animal communication. So I see what horses are struggling with too. But what I feel like humans are struggling with is stress. We've always been like struggling with stress, but I think people are also struggling with a lot of hopelessness because when I do emotion code and I clear stuck emotions, often it's the hopelessness or lack of control and this energy of the lower vibrational frequencies also of like shame and guilt, and this hopelessness energy, especially in the states with we've had, just it's been rough for a while, as it is in different places around the world, right? But it's this level of like, when is it going to get better, and do I have can I be empowered? And there's a lot of the fear of the unknown, but that creates stress. And so instead of like people, the fear of the unknown is being so future focused, right? Anxiety is so future focused that the horses are living in the
Mm,
present moment, and nature is existing in full expression in the present moment. So I think that's what the horses can really help people with is, wait a minute, hold on. How can I remember to anchor in the present moment and learn basic mindfulness and emotional regulation techniques so that when I am stressed, I have something to rely on. I have a toolkit for that. Um, so I think that's what I've been noticing and I've been helping people with a lot, is that I think relationship stuff is at kind of an all-time high too, of just people feeling like,
mm.
I read this recently that there's a friendship recession going on, and like there's disconnection because of, I know, I was like, okay, I have to do something about this because like I've always like I love my friends. I've always had good friends, and I'm like, we can't have that. Like, I need to like, and so I think horses are good friends to us too. And that helps people be like, okay, wait, I am lovable and loving. Let me go bring that back into my relationships. So they help people a lot. I think again with connection, people come a lot and they say they want connection, calm, and clarity. Like big
Mm.
things. So lately it's been helping people more with calm and connection. And then I find what the horses are struggling with. I'd be so curious to know like what themes you're seeing lately from talking to people. I think it's
Mm.
similar in the stress. I think they feel the human stress. I think that colic can be there, of course, anytime. But I think there's this level of horses are wanting to almost have not have breaks from us, but have times where they can really rest. so they can replenish. So I've been seeing like my girls, when we just had a retreat here, they showed these women, you need to rest. Like you have to pause and take time to rest because it's important for all the work you're doing in the world and all you're facing. So I think the animals also are experiencing frustration with not being able to get their messages across as quickly as they'd like to, and also wanting to show us like stress is like real bad, real bad, and you have it, but if you're gonna have it, then rest, right? And take good care of yourself. So
I've got to ask before we move on, Kate, I've got to ask, why are we in a friendship
I
recession?
think
What is the cause
I
of
think
this?
it's
I've got an idea, but
It's because of this, like, global pandemic thing that we all went through, and people feeling like they had
oh,
to, like, shelter at home or be inside of their houses,
mm,
and they I feel like a lot of people are focused on parenting, and so they only have exposure to friends through their kiddos, or they're really focused in their relationship because they were in their houses, and so the friendships might be harder.
mm,
And I think that a lot of people have friendships that are global, or a lot of my friends are online, but like when am I going to see them? And not everyone wants to travel as much
mm.
and go see their friends. And so I think there's just a lot of elements to it. But I also think people just, there's a loneliness and a, yeah, there's that going on. So I'm now like, I've been thinking about it actually all day today and yesterday. And I'm just like, I'm going to launch something around this because I want people to feel connected. I want people to, a lot of my clients and friends listen to podcasts. Like they're going to love this because they find that's a form of connection for them, that they feel
Mm.
understood. They feel like they can, people are talking about these concepts that are important to them. But I also feel like we need like the in-person hug thing again, truly too.
Yeah, I so agree with all that you were just saying, and I've noticed myself in local communities, in local areas, and wherever I go really, that people are so insular now. They're staring at their phone, waiting in
Mm.
queues, everyone's looking at their phone, sitting in pubs, they're looking at their phone, instead of talking and having conversations. And you're almost shocked when someone does say, up to a bar the other day, and two people were having a chat and they included me in their chat, and you almost think, are you talking to
Yeah.
me? Why are you talking to me? But and then you relax into it and think, "How lovely. I've just had a 10-minute chat with 2 complete strangers, and now we carry on with our life." But it's so interesting about you saying people being drawn to podcasts, and it's because we're not having those chats in the pub or in queues or on public transport anymore. Whereas as humans, we've been programmed, haven't we, to all sit round the fire and have meaningful conversations that we just aren't anymore.
Yeah, that makes me emotional because I totally agree. Like,
Mm.
there's something, and that's why I'm hoping this, like, people are gonna do more retreats in the future, and they're gonna go be with each other because our hearts need that. It's even bigger than community, it's this, like, soul energy of wanting to, like, connect, and in the States, there's this crazy division, which I just didn't participate in because I just see both sides as much as that to each side sounds crazy. I can hold space and rise above all of it, like the hawk's perspective of I see the bigger picture and I'm not going to get mired down in my way or your way. And so I've always wanted to be a bridge and I hold that energy, but not everyone is. And some people are really just like in their own space. And it's like, if you don't agree with me, we can't be friends. And I'm like, why? There's a lot of things we don't agree with in life, but we don't need to sit and quiz each other about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've also got to ask you, Kate, again, something I will ask a horse trainer is what transformations have you seen within your work when training horses? And I can ask you this about people. What transformations have you seen when humans have spent time with your
Yeah.
horses?
Yeah, beautiful stuff. I have seen people literally become like almost completely different people. And that sounds scary, but it's not. I've had a woman that comes in, is single, unhappy with her life, wants to get married and have kids. And in a short time, focuses so much on inner child and self-love and taking brave steps, that is like married, has a kiddo, loves her job, loves her life. Like I've seen people come in where even just recently there's like a lot of negative energy, negative thinking, a lot of worldview that creates victimhood, right? And having such a healing that it's like, wait, life is joyful and there's on wonder here, and I can hold the lens differently, and I'm not living from my past, and I'm no longer a victim, I'm a creator. And so they look different. Their eyes are brighter. They're living in this sense of like flow and connection and seeing life as for them, right? Rather than against them. So I think it's a lot of like mindset shifts, but that they really are deeper energy shifts, and like myself included, like I don't have that type A drive anymore. And the second I start to be like, I gotta do this, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. And then luckily I have a
Mm,
part of myself that comes in and goes, why? Is that really going to make you happy? Or do you just think that's going to make you happy? Are you doing that for your ego? Or are you doing that for your soul? Like I have a part of me now that like coaches myself through this energy that goes into attachment to outcome and also wants to just keep me busy. So the horses have helped me with that. It's that energy of, okay, but is that really serving your highest value? And is that a should, or is that a get to? Right? Because the horses don't should themselves. They do this follow what feels good life.
mm.
And that's what I want for people. I want people to do a follow what feels good life.
And you also have goats, and I've got to
Yes.
ask, the goats take part in therapeutic sessions with people too, but how do the horses and goats react and interact? And what sort of horse and goat friendships have you got on your
Okay,
yard?
so that's what's so, like, sad is the horses and goats are not best friends, and I was someone telling me that the other day. They're like, "Do you know that goats were always used or put into stalls with thoroughbreds, right, to keep them calm, and they were best
Well,
friends?"
this is what I've heard.
I just
Yeah.
learned more about that the other day. And I'm like, my thoroughbred is not thrilled with the goats. They're not horses. And I'm like, I know, but that's why they're special. They don't dislike each other, but it's not this like, huge love fest that I was hoping for, but they work well with each other. They respect each other and what they're doing. The horses have said, bring people into the goats first because it gets them into their hearts. They go into awe and wonder. They get down closer to the ground to pet them and connect with them. So the job is easier for the horses. They're not having to get people out of their heads so much. And people are in their body, they're in their wonder and their joy. And so then the horses can help faster. And so
So the goats are the warm-up act.
they're the opening act to the main event. And what I
Oh.
say to people is I say, come for the horses and stay for the goats because everyone comes and they want the horses and they know that's what I do. And then they're like, wait, can I just hang out with the goats? Wait, can I just say goodbye to the goat? Wait, can we just be with the goats? And I'm like,
Oh.
because they're magical, at least mine. And people have said they're like other goats are not like this. And I think it's how I see them. I don't see them as livestock. Like my cats acted more like dogs. My goats act more like dogs. They come when they call, they follow around, they're loving, they're connective. And it's that energy of the dog that you don't expect. And the dog is what? That loyal best friend energy. And so the goats, but they're prey, so they're actually scared of dogs. And they are similar to horses in that 4 feet, hooves on the ground, energy. But the goats are different because they get into things. They're super curious. They're brave. They're playful. And so I love the name Curious Equestrian because I was like, yeah, that's pretty much a goat equestrian.
Goat energy.
It is goat.
We have goat energy here at Curious Equestrian.
100% you guys do. And I was thinking that this morning. I was like, it's called Curious Equestrian. That's goat energy. Like that's goat. What is this? What is this? Why does that exist? Is this cool? Should I try this? Is
Oh,
that better? What about that? Like it's so goat. Yeah.
I am a goat.
Yeah.
I've always thought I was a goat,
You are.
and now it just confirms it. Oh, what's so fascinating is you've just done exactly what I do when I talk about my sheep, and they are rescue sheep, I hasten to add. We are not going to eat them. And you have exactly done what I do. When I try and explain my bond with my sheep, I say they are like dogs. They are dogs. And it's because people don't understand. When I say I have sheep and I rescue sheep with my mum, people assume that we're fattening them up to eat them. And it's so interesting that in order to try and communicate the friendship and the bond we have with sheep, we have to say they are like dogs. And then people get that imagery of they come to call, they know their names, They want to be with us, they love a cuddle, they love a head scratch, they've all got their own personalities, and then people understand it. People don't if you just say, "I have pet sheep."
Right.
They think, "What's going on there?"
Right.
Exactly, sounds like you have that bond with your goats. And it's been fascinating to watch because we have miniature rescue horses, so American miniatures and Shetland crosses, and they initially hated the sheep and they would chase them and they would try and bite them and they were very alien and they wanted to dominate them and all hell let loose. And years down the line, they now are all a bonded herd, which is fascinating. The fact that my mare Winnie will call out to the sheep if she's separated from them. And if the sheep are brought in for their fly treatments and their hoof trimming, they will call out to Winnie when they're separated from her. And it's been so enlightening to see that bond grow and knowing that obviously our horse herds need horses and other ponies to communicate. But it's been fascinating to watch a different friendship grow. And again, they can't talk to us in their language, but they talk in their own way to their sheep friends.
Okay.
And you never know, they may one day bond with your goats, or maybe they just don't like your goat's personality.
I
But it's isn't it
yeah.
intriguing? It's so fascinating.
It is so beautiful. I love nothing more like, there's those books, Unlikely Friendships, and I love nothing more than the
Yeah,
interspecies relationship stuff. I think it's so cool, and I think that I've been thinking about it, and I haven't asked my thoroughbred, but I wonder if she did have a goat best friend when she was on the track, and they took her, or something
yeah,
happened, and so now it represents some sort of I actually probably need to look at that now that we're talking about this. What is some of that disconnect? But my other mare, who's the lead, I had to move my goats off of a property in Colorado before I moved the horses off. And as I took them out, she's screaming at me, "Why are you taking my goats?" And I'm like, "They're my goats." She's like, "No, they're my goats." And I was like, "Okay." So she was definitely like, "No, we are a herd. We stay together. We all go together."
yeah.
I don't have a trailer for all of you at the moment, so just hold on. They went the next day, and but then it was really sweet because they were across the street from each other, and one of my goats does really like one of my horses a lot. They are bonded. So one day she goes,
Oh,
"Can you walk me across the street? I wanna see Phoenix." And I'm like, "Sure." So I just walked her across the street, and Phoenix came up to her the way she would to a little child, and she just touched her nose, and I've watched Phoenix work on Sparkles. I have a goat named Sparkles. Like, she's worked on Sparkles. And she literally has she's helped her. She was not feeling one day, and I have video of it, and she was, like, working on her energy, and then all of a sudden Sparkles was like, "Ah, I feel better now," and it was so amazing to watch. So, no, they definitely have their own bond, and I want sheep because I feel like they're also a game changer for people because we have so much stuff we put on goats or on sheep. Like, people put goats are jerks or sheep are stupid, and I'm like, "Whoa," and so part of what I wanna do here on the planet is, like, dismantle speciesism and have people, like,
exactly.
yeah, animals differently. So I love what do you feel like the sheep teach the most? I'm so curious.
Oh, it's exactly that. It's breaking down those barriers and those stereotypes of sheep are thick, sheep are dumb, they are just livestock. It's that, like you say, separating goats and sheep and saying, actually, they are beings, they are personalities, they are characters, they're intelligent, they know faces, they know people, they know their names. We have one sheep called Bertie who comes to call. You say, Bertie, and he comes bounding over with the age old phrase, like a dog.
Yeah.
And it's that people just don't realise that if you treat an animal, and I don't have cows, but I'm sure cows are the same. If you treat an animal, whatever they are, emu, alpaca, cow, sheep, goat, as a dog, like you say, even cats, as a
Yeah,
dog, they will behave like a
yeah,
dog. And it's only because we as humans seem to treat pets differently to livestock that people don't see that. And if you don't cuddle or bond with an animal or stroke it or develop a friendship, then of course it's going to behave
yeah,
differently. And of course it's going to go out and graze and prefer grass to humans
exactly.
and be feral and wild because it's how it's treated, isn't it? And that for me is what gets me going. It's wanting to change that perception of sheep and, dare I say, even horses. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having a working horse that goes to competitions as long as it's done fairly and treated well and is allowed to behave like a horse. But actually, you can tell the difference between people that treat their horses as
Yes.
pets and people that treat their horses as working competition
Yes.
animals, because the bonds are
Yes.
different. Because some people have horses for the job and for the work, and some people have horses just because they love them as a pet, and it doesn't matter if they can't be ridden. It doesn't matter if they're just a field ornament, and the relationship is different because it's what you put into those animals, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, I love it, and it also what I find in that yeah, I love everything you just said, but and there's also not either or, because I find this too, sometimes people come to me and they're like, "I'm not doing this work with my animals anymore," so that means what? They're either given to someone who's gonna do work with them, or they are just a pet. And you can have a pet based animal relationship where they're like your family member and still work with them and still show with them. In fact, that's a really beautiful way to be in relationship. It's not this either or either, right? Where it's like they're just your show. And I find that people care for those animals so differently. But what's interesting is I actually feel like when you just shared, I was like, there's a merging of the world that's available because the people who treat their animals in the show space, they do a lot for them. Often they're kept in a box because they don't want any nicks on them or anything, but so I don't love that, but they put a lot into them. They put a lot of money and time and
Mm.
focus on making sure they're in top shape. That energy of making sure an animal's in top shape can come into the pet space. But then the care and the connection and the relationship that we feel with the animals as pets and the animals and the horses specifically as pets and family members, that needs to go into the show space. That needs to go in. And so it's almost like we both sides can learn from each other and it's not black or white. I have a ridden horse and a non-ridden horse. And they both get to work, but they don't have to work. And it's
Mm.
my goal is to inspire them to want to work to want to help humans. They don't have to, they have a choice, but ideally they want to and they enjoy it and they see that there's a really big purpose in that. Same with the goats, but the goats love my goats love working. They're always like, "Mom, we're bored. When can we have a client? We need to do something." And I'm like, "It's only been like 2 days." And they're like, "We need to do something." And they just want to teach. They're like probably some of the only goats on the planet that are being role models for like the goat consciousness. And so I get excited about that. Like you as sheep, I'm like, yeah, share the sheep, share the sheep. Because we have to. Like a lot of people aren't doing that.
And it's these conversations that start changing the perception of
Exactly.
goats and of sheep and spreading the word.
Yes.
And also, they're incredible as a herd. They're so reassuring to each other. And as I always say, it never replaces the horse and horse relationship because that's so vital that horses have their herd. But sheep are an amazing addition to add numbers to that herd and to that mixed flock. And the fact that even with the parasites, the sheep will eat the horse worms and the horse will eat the sheep worms. I can't go into any more technical scientific detail than that, but it's a great system that they have going on, grazing together. They have so much to bring. Kate, before you go, I've got to ask a question that's probably on all of our minds. You use your horses and your goats for your coaching sessions. What do the horses get out of the
Yeah,
sessions?
it's such a good question. And I always say I partner with them. So that's why I branded this whole equine partnered coaching because I don't we always use that word use, and it's so easy to use the word use, but I love to just shift it really quick. So I work with them, I partner with them, and that's one of the goals I want in the whole industry is that people start to say, I partner with my horse in the show, or I partner with my horse in equine therapy. What I feel they get out of it is a sense of purpose where they've been honored as a sentient being, as a wisdom teacher, as someone that's a role model, which is a high purpose if you think about it, right? I'm not just like clocking out like what I used to do, make other people rich and do a ton of emails all day. That was my job, right? And now it's like they get to really be themselves and teach from who they are, who they are in their energy, who they are in their essence. And they get to, I personally, what they've shared is when we heal something, they heal something as well And often, like, they call in clients that have matching issues to them, whether it's abandonment or trust or being guarded or a past performance history that they're coming out of and reconditioning themselves into a beingness. So there's a lot of that mapping. So as they heal, they also get healed. And that's always my intention, that all of us collectively are doing the healing, because my clients have similar issues to me. So it's all of that.
Kate, it's been such an inspiring hour, and we have dotted and jumped from topic to topic. And I feel we have delved into so many life issues as well as that face the equestrian industry and community. So thank you for opening up all of our minds and also making me face my own cuddling issues, and also finding my goat energy. I think that's gonna stay with
Thank
me. I have goat
you.
energy, and I'm not afraid to share it. Kate, for those listening who want to find you, how can they do that?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been so fun. I love it. So best is my website, katenelligan.com. I'm on socials under Kate Nelligan Equine Coach. And if people want to explore more, I do a lot virtually and have clients all over the world. And then the on the website is the Awakening with Equines card deck if people want awesome art. You also had Nika on your podcast, and so
Yeah!
Nika did the art for that card deck and has been a great collaborator as well. So that's something people check out, both those that podcast episode too. So yeah, so there's a lot in the online social space for people to find me.
And if anyone isn't sure of what Kate was just referencing, Kate was talking about Nika Quinn, and you can go and watch her episode. It's called Horses, Art, and Your Inner Child
That's
on
such a
Curious
good name for
Equestrian.
her to have that. Yeah. I watched some of it the other day. I was like, this is so great. So
Kate, thank you so much for coming on Curious Equestrian.
thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to and watching Curious Equestrian. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube so that you don't miss an episode and all that's coming your way, or you can subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you listen. If you could leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, that would really help us to find lots more lovely listeners. And you can also follow us on Instagram at Curious Equestrian Podcast. We'll see you next time.